Hey everybody, this is Brian and welcome to the 86th Qt tutorial with C++ and GUI programming. Go ahead and choose console application. And today we're going to be doing more advanced binary input-output. So we'll just call this bin IO2. And let's just throw this in the usual location. My microphone's got a bunch of knots in it. I think the cat's been playing with it. Anyway, sorry to get sidetracked. Okay, so the basic premise of what we learned in the last tutorial was that you could take objects and output them to a file stream. Well, this time we're going to do relatively the same thing, but we're going to output a class to the file stream. So let's just add new, and we're going to make a C++ class. Let's just call this person. Notice how it makes person age and person.cpp, and just next, and we have our basic person class here. And you notice how there's really not much to the person class at all. So we're just going to add a few things here. And we're just going to say include qcore. I know people hate it when I do this, but it saves time. Now we've got our constructor, and we're just going to say int age. And normally you would use a getter and a setter. This is actually a very bad form to do it this way, where you have your variables publicly accessible. But like I said, we're trying to save time, and you already know how to do all this stuff, so we're just making a very simple class. All this class does is hold the age and the name. Now, what we need to do is, in our main, actually add a few includes. So we'll say include the class we just made, and let's just Qt core. There we go. Then we're going to want two functions, save and load. And you guessed it, one saves and one loads. So the first thing we need to do is actually make a person. And we'll just call this person1. And we'll say person1 dot age. Oops, something grabbed my mouse. And we're going to say equals 36. And person1 dot name, we're going to say is Brian, because that's me. And we're going to make another person, just for the sake of argument here. We're going to make two of these. Say person2. We're going to say 18, and we'll just give my daughter's name Heather. Alright, now that we've got our two person classes, or our people as we should say, we're going to actually create a Q file and stream this out. So we'll say Q file. I'm going to say file. And put this, wherever you've been putting your files. And we'll just call this people.txt. Now, remember, we're not actually, don't get thrown by the .txt. We're just doing that so you can simply open up a notepad and kind of peek at the contents if you really want to. It is a binary file, though, so chances are it's just going to be nothing but gibberish. And we're going to say file.open. And we want to do Q IO device. We want write only, because we're going to write to the file. So if we could not write to the file, then we're just going to simply say Q debug, and we're just going to output here. Whoops. Help if I got it in the quotes. Could not open file. That way we've got some just, basic debug logging here, kind of show us if something catastrophic happened with the file system, and then we exit out. Otherwise, if we can do it, we're just going to say Q data stream, and we'll just call this out. Give it a reference to our file. And then of course out set version, and then we want to do the Q data stream, and we want the version of this, which is going to be Qt, and the newest one, which I believe I'm on 4.7. Although I hear the Qt 5 is scheduled to come out soon. I could be wrong. Anybody else hear anything about that? Let me know. All right, scroll down here. And you know, we're just doing some basic output here. So we're just going to say out person1 out person2. So we're just going to output our two classes out to the file. Say file.flush, and nothing new here. I mean, this is all everything you already know. All right. Now, what do you think is going to happen when we go to run this? Well, let's find out. Let's actually go here and let's say save. Some of you are probably snickering because you've made this mistake before. Oh, wait a minute. No match for operator in out. What does that mean? And you see, oh my gosh, catastrophic error. I mean, all these things just exploded behind it. Well, if you remember from your C++ book, you did buy one, didn't you? There was a chapter on operator overloading. So if you go out to cplus.com, let me see if I can expand this, tutorial/classes2, they have this very, very nice chapter on overloading operators. And they tell you, first off, what is an operator? Well, any of these symbols are an operator. Plus, minus, multiply, left shift, right shift, things of that nature. They're all operators. Well, in C++, you can actually override that behavior. And it's actually expected that you do that. This is a perfect example of why you would need to do this, because we're trying to left shift this person1 class into the output stream, and person1 class doesn't know how to do that. So we have to tell it, what we expect of it in order to do this. So what I'm going to do here is we're just going to add new, and we're going to make a header file, and we're going to call this, that's a good question. What should we call this? Let's call this overloads. And then we've got our header file. Notice how there's no source file with it. It's just our header. And we are going to give it a few includes here. Whoops. We'll give it person.h, and we're going to say include Qt core. Now we have our includes. Now what we need to do is actually override the operators so that we can at any time tell it what we want it to do and how we expect it to act. So QDataStream, and we need to say the reference to the operator, and we want the left shift operator, and we'll call this QDataStream out, and we want a constant person class, and we're just going to call this person. Alright, let's see here. Somebody had asked me once in a while if I could just do that so you guys could see the code. Alright. Now we can just pretty much copy and paste this because they're actually very similar and pretty much the same thing. Call this in. These are our function prototypes here, which are needed. And then we're going to actually implement these. And if you're like me, when you first read your C++ book, you did buy one, didn't you? When you read it, you got to the chapter on operator overloading, you thought, this is fascinating, but when am I ever going to use this? Well, this is one of those times. So we're going to write a person class to the stream. And we're going to say out person.age and person.name. And then we're going to return the output stream. So really all we're doing here is we're telling it exactly how to put this class into the output stream. And remember, anything that we do, we must do the opposite. So we'll say read in a person class. And we'll say person equal and then in, we want to Now that we've got a new person class here, because remember, we may be reading it in and we don't actually have a class yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to read in the age, and then, you guessed it, the name. And then we want to return the input stream. So, real basic operator overloading we got here. We're going to override left shift and right shift. I believe those are called left shift and right shift. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. It's been forever since I even done this. And then we implement the overrides. And really all we're doing is we're telling it exactly how we want that outputted and in what order. And remember, you have to read it in the same order. Now, actually, let me throw that back up there. Make sure we're in the right file here. We are. All right. Now, we're in main. What we can do is do an include. And we include our overloads. And if you remember back from our C++ tutorials, anything that you include is going to be prepended, meaning it's just like putting the code right here. So let's save and run this, and as luck would have it, we did something wrong here. Passing constant person as this argument of person. Oh, I see what the problem is here. We have it as a constant. We can't do that. Jeez, sorry about that. Like I said, it's been a while. So let's real quick review here. We don't want a constant because constant means we can't change it, and we're actually changing it when we read it in. So for the output, we want a constant because we don't want to change it. For the input, we want to change it, so there's no constant. So let's run this. Definition of implicitly declared person class. Yes. Let's review real quick. I want to make sure we've got this. We've taken out the person constructor, and there's no person constructor here. Now everything should line up and run just fine. There we go. So we ran this. We haven't outputted anything, but we did write out to the text file. And we'll just grab an instance of Explorer, and there it is. And as you can see, there's our two classes, Brian and Heather. So now we want to be able to read that in. Now you may be asking, why do you even need person.cpp? Well, you really don't for this example because we're not really doing anything. So you could get rid of that if you really wanted to. Alright, there's our overloads, there's our main. So now we want to load this up. Alright, so we'll get rid of that. We're just going to create two variables and not initialize them. Use the same file. We want read-only. We'll call this in, and we're just going to do in person1, in person2. Don't need to flush, but we do need to close. And then we're just going to say qdebug person1.age, and actually let's flip this around. Let's say person1.name. We're just going to say, name is, and then the age. So, got that. Let's hide this again for you. There we go. And we want to read in person2. Or I should say we want to output to person2. We've already read it in. No, I'm going to comment out save. You don't really need to. I mean, it would just write the file again. And we're just going to run this and see what happens when we load it. And sure enough, Brian is 36, Heather is 18. So that, in a nutshell, is, I would call that more advanced binary input-output. And let's review really, really quick just to make sure all this kind of sinks in here. We've got a few files. We've got our person class, which is just, a representation of the data we want to store. We have our overloads file, which has the function prototypes for the operator overloads, and then it has the implementation of each one. And remember, we're just telling it how we want to write the data out and how we want to read it in. C++ is an amazing and incredibly stupid tool. You have to tell it everything because it does exactly what you tell it to do. We have our implementation file for person, but it's empty because there's just nothing in there. And then we have our actual program, which we're importing overloads in person, and then we're just creating an instance, filling it with information, opening a file, setting the version, outputting it, flushing and closing, and then we're just doing the reverse. We're just creating a few instances, opening, reading the file, setting the version, reading in the objects, closing again, and then we're outputting to the screen. Very simple, very useful. So that's all for this tutorial. This is Brian. Thank you for watching. You can find all this and more out on my website, voidrealms.com. Yes, I've really been pushing the website because you can go out free of charge and get the source code for this tutorial, save yourself a little bit of typing, or if you type it out and it's just not working, you can just download the source and it should just work. So give me some user feedback. I'm really kind of curious to hear what you guys want to see in the way of tutorials in the near future. We've covered a lot of topics, and I'm kind of interested to see where you guys want to go. Now please don't flood me with, Brian, let's make a 3D video game, because those take, a dozen programmers 3 years to make. We're talking something simple that you can digest in, 15 minutes or less. All right, thanks guys.